Campus Watch, an organization led by Daniel Pipes, addresses the mixing of politics with scholarship, intolerance of alternative views, apologetics, and the abuse of power over students. Campus Watch focuses mainly on the war on terror, militant Islam, the Arab-Israeli conflict, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. It has produced inflammatory and scathing commentary on faculty and administrators at many of the most prestigious colleges and universities in the United States. Because of this subtle form of blacklisting, Campus Watch has been considered a threat to academic freedom and more widely seen as a form of intimidation and as a scare tactic.
I think that the Campus Watch phenomenon reflects the growing trend in American political discussions to move toward polemical kinds of responses and polemical kinds of arguments rather than reasoned arguments. I first heard that there were a couple of references to me on Campus Watch from colleagues, that they were checking up on whether or not they were part of it and came to me and said, "Did you know you're on Campus Watch?" And I said no. I think that given the polemical nature of Campus Watch, ultimately I would have been disappointed if they hadn't paid some attention to me. It's one of those kinds of things that it is, if you have a mainstream, middle-of-the-road, moderate position toward policies in the Middle East, and you're not listed on Campus Watch, people aren't paying attention to you. And so that, as I say, my reaction was, oh, that's good. I'm glad I'm on Campus Watch.
Well, certainly with Pipes and Campus Watch, I mean, I think that's very out in the open, they're keeping tabs, you know, and they're lobbying to get professors fired and that sort of thing if they don't teach what they want them to teach. So I don't think that's a secret. In other words, I don't think it's a secret of Campus Watch, or I'm sure a lot of colleges and universities feel threatened.
And it's sad, I think academia is the only space really where there's somewhat of a debate. Like I mentioned, the mainstream press, I mean, it's very one-sided, and you're not going to hear anything on the Hill or in DC or in think tanks. And academia is really the only space where people can engage in critical thought, and even there the debate is being stifled.
They say, "Hey Israel, what do you say?" We say, "Hey Palestine, what do you say? How many buses did you bomb today?"
You're a spokesperson. Are you in communication?
I like your sign.
Thank you very much. You guys are the school.
Right. I am very careful and very hesitant about using the word anti-Semitism, and I think other Jews should be as well, and certainly Jewish organizations should be very careful, and I believe most are. I think we want to protect the integrity of the word and the power that the word holds, and if you use it at every perceived slight, it no longer has the kind of social power that one would want, one would hope for such an important phenomenon in history, and something that really has wreaked havoc on Jews for millennium. So I'm careful.
There are always these tensions, and I think it's very natural. You know, they say how two Jews have three opinions. I mean, you can see it very well in all these Jewish sort of and pro-Israeli gatherings, how there are always, you know, leading opinions, but there are also a lot of dissenting opinions saying maybe we should try to reach out to the other side. Maybe we should try to approach the other side more.
I don't think there's any possibility of dialogue as long as we don't sit down and really talk through the most sensitive and delicate issues. If you know, we can, because there's a lot of sort of this idea that we Muslims and Jews in Europe should, should be divorcing ourselves from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but the fact is that this is really clearly impacting our relationships and our dialogue. I'm speaking from a European perspective, so obviously if we come together, we have to speak about these issues, otherwise it's just a disingenuous and dishonest debate, I think.
My sense is that it's Carter, really, who is specifically discussing what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. So I think Americans are hearing stuff they've never heard before. And so I'm not sure that there's been this new opening of discussion on the Palestinians. I think Americans think Hamas is a terrorist organization. I mean, that's what they're told all the time, and that there's no discussion about the Palestinians had a free and fair election, but that was not acceptable, for example. I mean, I think there's a lot of issues that aren't being discussed that seem pretty obvious, just in the context of our own diplomacy, that we're for free and fair elections and we want to bring democracy. I mean, that's just not discussed. So I think there's more to be said about the Palestinians. I think the discussion is more about Israel and the role Israel plays in U.S. foreign policy. That's my sense. And I think that the pro-Israel community is not very happy about that.
But I think slowly people are realizing that criticizing the policies of the state of Israel are not the same as being anti-Semitic. There's a big difference, and Israel should be under scrutiny, its policies. And I think Americans especially have a lot of Americans I talk to, they say, well, I feel bad, I'm singling out Israel, look at all the other states in the world that are committing human rights abuses. But I think as Americans whose tax dollars are going to Israel, I mean, Israel is the largest recipient of US aid in the world, they have an obligation to ask, where are tax dollars going? What policies are they supporting? Is the US funding the genocide in Sudan? Not really. But is the US funding apartheid in Palestine? Yes.
I don't think it's useful to cast this argument as being anti-Zionist or pro-Zionist, and I certainly don't think it's useful to cast the argument as being pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. I am not pro-Israeli, I am not pro-Palestinian. The issue is an issue of justice.